In the heart of Ireland, nestled within a tapestry of rolling green hills and ancient, whispering forests, lay the village of Glenmara. It was a place where time meandered, like the gentle streams that crisscrossed its landscape, and where every stone, tree, and breeze seemed steeped in lore. The O'Sullivan family, central to village life, was abuzz with preparations for a joyous occasion. Their eldest daughter, Aoife, was to be wed, and the entire village shared in the family's excitement. Homes were festooned with colorful bunting, the aroma of baking bread and sweet cakes filled the air, and laughter echoed through the streets. As dusk fell on the eve of the wedding, a sense of contentment settled over Glenmara. Yet, as the villagers retired to their homes, a chilling change was brewing in the air. The night grew unusually still, as if the land itself was holding its breath. Maeve O'Sullivan, Aoife's younger sister, was the first to hear it, a faint, distant wail that rose and fell with the wind. It was a sound that seemed neither human nor animal, a sorrowful lament that clawed at the soul. Fearful, she drew her shawl tighter and peered out into the darkness. The forest at the edge of the village, usually a silhouette of comforting shadows, now seemed to harbor something sinister. The wail grew louder, weaving through the village like a specter. Doors were barred, candles snuffed out, and prayers whispered fervently. The old folk knew, and the young quickly learned. This was the cry of the Banshee, the harbinger of death in Irish folklore. It was said that her lament was heard only by those destined to face a great loss, a chilling premonition that death was lurking near. In the O'Sullivan household, the air grew heavy with dread. The family huddled together, Aoife's joy overshadowed by a gnawing fear. Their father, Sean, a man of the earth, hardened by years of toiling the land, tried to dispel the fear with reason. "It's just the wind," he asserted, but his voice wavered, betraying his own unease. Throughout the night, the Banshee's wail echoed, a mournful serenade that seemed to penetrate the very bones of the village. It spoke of ancient sorrows, of lives and loves lost to the inexorable march of time. As dawn broke, casting a hesitant light over Glenmara, the wail ceased. The villagers emerged from their homes, eyes weary, and hearts heavy with an unspoken question. Who among them was marked by the Banshee's cry? In the O'Sullivan home, the wedding preparations resumed, but the joy was tainted, overshadowed by the whisper in the wind. Aoife, usually radiant, seemed pallid, her smiles forced. Maeve, haunted by the night's eerie chorus, watched the forest with apprehension. The day after the eerie wailing, Glenmara was cloaked in a dense, suffocating mist, as if the very air mourned in silence. Maeve O'Sullivan, younger cousin to Aoife, found herself drawn to the heart of this mystery. The death of her distant uncle, which had occurred mere days after a similar wailing was heard, had never been explained. The villagers whispered of a curse, and in these whispers, Maeve heard the echoes of the Banshee. Determined and headstrong, Maeve ventured towards the ancient woods that bordered the village, the very woods where legend placed the Banshee's origin. The fog seemed to reach out with ghostly fingers, chilling and disorienting. Each step Maeve took was a step into a world that blurred the lines between the living and the dead. As she wandered deeper, the forest's ancient trees loomed like silent sentinels, their gnarled branches clawing at the mist. The air was heavy with the scent of earth and decay, and the only sound was her own breath, quick and shallow. The further she ventured, the more she felt the presence of something unseen, a sorrow so profound it was almost tangible. Then, through the mist, a figure appeared. It was ethereal, its form wavering as if made of the mist itself. It was the Banshee, her face sorrowful, her eyes pools of endless grief. Her appearance was not the monstrous visage of tales. Instead, she bore an eerie beauty, a tragic figure caught between worlds. Maeve, rooted to the spot, felt a fear that was primal and deep. Yet, there was also a pull, an inexplicable connection that tugged at her soul. The Banshee did not speak, but her mournful eyes conveyed volumes. In them, Maeve saw flashes of lives that once were, of sorrow that had spanned centuries. The spirit raised a hand, as if in warning or in plea, and then, as suddenly as she appeared, she dissolved into the mist. Maeve was left alone, with the echo of a wail that seemed to reverberate through her very being. Shaken, Maeve returned to the village, her mind a torrent of emotions. She could not dismiss what she had seen as mere fancy. The legend of the Banshee was real, and with this realization came a dread. The Banshee's wail was a portent of death, and its recent visitation hung over the village like a dark shroud. That night, as Maeve lay in her bed, the events in the forest replayed in her mind. The Banshee's sorrowful visage haunted her, a ghostly reminder of the thin veil between life and the afterlife. She realized that the Banshee was not just a harbinger of death, but a tragic figure, bound to an eternal cycle of grief and forewarning. Maeve knew she could not let this rest. She needed to understand the connection between her family and the Banshee, to uncover the truths hidden within the shrouded layers of legend and fear. It was a path that would lead her further into the realm of the unknown, into a history intertwined with the supernatural. The unsettling encounter with the Banshee propelled Maeve into a relentless quest for answers. She delved into old family records and listened intently to the village elders' tales, piecing together a mosaic of history and myth. Long ago, the O'Sullivans were not mere villagers but chieftains, powerful and respected. Among them was a young woman named Aisling, celebrated for her beauty and spirit. But Aisling bore a deep sadness, for she was in love with a man deemed unsuitable by her family. This man, a poet named Eamon, shared her love, but their union was forbidden. Defiant, Aisling and Eamon planned to elope, but their plan was betrayed. On the eve of their escape, Eamon was captured and executed, accused of bewitching Aisling. Heartbroken, Aisling's grief knew no bounds. She cursed her family, vowing that the echo of her sorrow would be a harbinger of their doom. As Maeve uncovered more, she learned that Aisling vanished into the woods, never to be seen again. The villagers whispered that she had been transformed by her own curse, becoming the Banshee, forever mourning, her wail a prelude to death in her bloodline, the O'Sullivans. This revelation struck Maeve like a thunderclap. The Banshee, the spectral figure in the mist, was her ancestor, doomed to lament not only her own loss, but also to foretell the deaths of her descendants. The recent events in Glenmara, the death of her uncle, the wail heard before Aoife's wedding, were all links in a chain of sorrow that stretched back centuries. The more Maeve learned, the more she felt a connection to Aisling, a kinship that transcended time. She began to understand that the Banshee's presence was not malevolent, but a manifestation of everlasting love and inconsolable grief. As Maeve delved deeper into the lore, the present-day occurrences in Glenmara seemed to intensify. The mist that enveloped the village grew thicker, as if mirroring the growing mystery. The villagers, once skeptical, began to regard Maeve with a mixture of awe and fear, sensing that she was unearthing something ancient and powerful. The village of Glenmara was suffused with an ominous air, as if every shadow whispered of impending doom. Maeve, now a vessel of her ancestor Aisling's sorrow, felt the weight of the centuries-old curse pressing upon her. She knew another death was imminent, and the time had come to confront the Banshee, to confront Aisling. With a heart heavy with determination and dread, Maeve ventured into the woods at dusk, the time when the veil between worlds was thinnest. The forest was alive with whispers, the trees swaying as if in mourning. As she reached the heart of the woods, a dense fog enveloped her, and there, in a clearing bathed in ethereal moonlight, stood the Banshee. The Banshee's appearance was more sorrowful than ever, her ethereal beauty tinged with an unbearable sadness. Maeve, summoning all her courage, spoke directly to the spirit. "Aisling," she began, her voice trembling, "I know your pain. I know your story. Your sorrow has become our curse, but it's time to let go. Your love, your loss, should not be our damnation." The Banshee, hearing her name and her tale acknowledged, paused in her lament. A stillness fell upon the woods, and for a moment, time itself seemed to halt. Maeve continued, her words a mixture of plea and resolve. "Your family, our family, has carried your grief for too long. Release us, Aisling. Find peace in the love you had, not in the sorrow that followed." As Maeve spoke, a transformation began. The Banshee's form shimmered, and in her place stood Aisling, the woman she once was, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. The air around them lightened, the oppressive weight of centuries lifting. Then, a startling revelation dawned on Maeve. The Banshee's wail was not just a harbinger of death, it was a call to those who carried Aisling's blood, to acknowledge her story, her pain. The deaths coinciding with the wail were not caused by the Banshee, but were natural occurrences, amplified in significance by the presence of the spirit. Maeve reached out, her hand passing through Aisling's ethereal form. "Find peace, Aisling. Your story will not be forgotten, but it's time for you, and us, to be free." Aisling's lips curved in a bittersweet smile. A silent thank you, before she slowly faded into the night, her form dissolving like mist. The forest sighed, a sound of release, and the fog lifted, revealing a sky full of stars. Maeve returned to Glenmara, a sense of bittersweet relief filling her. In the days that followed, life in the village slowly returned to normal, but with a newfound respect for the legend of the Banshee.